Yo, Pokey26 here, and I wanted to do a video on the recent patch for Stormgate. It's the early access update 0.0.2 patch notes. Obviously before the full release, this is what it is. Yeah, so we're just gonna go over it. I have looked at them previously, but I kind of want to look at them again and do a video for it. Anyways, we shall just get right into it. So, this is their second update since early access. And let's see. Bug fixes. Don't really care to talk about them, I guess. And balance notes. So the big things here. Creeps across the board are generally around 25% less bounty. And I think this is actually a good change. I think that's a good number to start with as well to check out how it plays out. So this is all good. And you can look at the fine details with the numbers there if you want, but yeah, 25%. And I think it's a good change. Because creeps are still going to be rewarding in my opinion, not only for the resources, but for controlling the point, since they give local and global buffs. So if you control those points, you are ahead in those ways as well, if you ever get into a fight. Fixed an issue with Shadow Mastiff doing more damage than intended to air. I guess that's good. Health camp healing amount decreased in half from 8 to 4. This change I think is good, but man, do you really notice it and feel it when you are on a health camp. So before, it felt pretty quick to just get your stuff healed and move on. Now you're like, do I really want to wait around and actually get everything healed? Or do I just want to continue on, creeping more camps or doing whatever else I need to do? So, yeah, it's definitely a little bit difficult to get used to at first, but I do think it's good for the game. And I think one of the main reasons why this is good is because there are so many health camps right outside your base. And it is oftentimes very punishing when your opponent controls that health camp and you're suddenly locked into your base. Any damage you do, they just micro out those couple units, heal them up, and then come back. Now, at least if they are going to heal up, it's a lot slower. You might be able to chase them down and actually fight them on the point itself because now they're not healing as much. Small things like that I think matter a lot. Where it's actually manageable to deal with your opponent having those, and also it's nice that your opponent doesn't just heal to full right away after creeping or something. Now they have to think about how they want to distribute the damage on their units and move on, how long they want to stay there to heal, and so on. Speed camp, active speed boost. So there is a global speed boost and a speed boost for when you first cap it with the units there. This is the when you first cap it with the units there boost. I do think it's good that this is reduced from 30 to 20 seconds. But I honestly still think it can and should be nerfed even more. You can still simply win the game within 20 seconds of capping that point. There are so many instances where your opponent might not even know you're on that point, and they just happen to be within range of you after you cap it. Your opponent's rushing forward, and there's nothing you can do. You can't back off anymore. You just had to have known already. And I don't know. I don't like how, even though you know the point got capped, like you can see it on the minimap, sometimes there's not enough time to even react to it unless you had previously already been positioned in such a way that you're not going to get jumped on and surrounded by it. So I don't really like this still, but it is a step in the right direction. This is definitely the one camp that, like I said, sometimes you just win and lose games because of it, and I don't think that's good for the game. So maybe a speed camp shouldn't even be a thing to begin with. Maybe it should be replaced with something else. I'm not sure. Hornet. So fixed a bug that prevented it from doing bonus damage to air units correctly. I'm not sure if they actually had it worded like this earlier. I want to say they just said fixed a bug that prevented it from dealing bonus damage, and then they didn't have this part. Maybe it always said this, and I just missed it. But I was like, what? Are they going to have it do double damage in general to light? That's crazy. But yeah, it's just anti-air damage, not all damage. But that is still good, I guess, now. I think it was bad before if it wasn't only anti-air, but if it's only the anti-air damage, I think that's good. You do want Hornets to be able to fight things like Scythes, I would say. Math Scythe is kind of lame. And, well, you'll see more when we get to Scythes in this patch notes as well. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Nightfall Infestation, which I think is the second spell that they have. Requires a greater shrine, so I think you need to be tier 2 then, right? To use it. But the cost is decreased. So now they can't use it on tier 1. I think that's fine. Flame on. Duration to have it activate is reduced, which is good, I guess. But honestly, I think one of the biggest problems with this unit is the fact that it can't really be done much in the way of prior to the fight because the duration is so slow. Or the duration is so low and the units are not fast enough to make use of it all the time. Because I'm pretty sure once you activate Flame On, your unit only lives for like 4 seconds beyond that before it automatically explodes, which is just not enough time to do much in many scenarios. So I do think this still needs to be changed more or reworked or something, but they are trying to get it to be used, I guess. Gaunts got changed. So I'm not sure exactly what this makes them better or worse in. I think something else farther down details it better. But it sounds like they are good in general, but like worse with their bouncing attacks, maybe? Not really sure how that works. Because this is 10 total to light, right? This is 9 total to light, and this is 8 to non-light. So they should just be better in general, but I'm pretty sure somewhere else, and I find it pretty far down here. Maybe I'm skipping too far ahead. I just wanted to point it out. Gaunt. So this is their notes. For struggle to break through Lancer walls. So this is supposed to help with Lancer walls. And it says it reduces their power in other situations, but I'm not understanding it perfectly, I feel. Because it says less damage to non-light, non-lancer, which doesn't make sense to me because it says 8 instead of 6 against non-light. And secondary damage is the same. I guess it's because of the attack speed, like weapon period is attack speed probably, right? But I think that's the biggest thing. The attack speed is changed so that attacks slower, and that's why it's weaker against light, but like slightly better against lancers because it's harder hitting, which makes it better against the lancer upgrade. Okay, it makes some sense. So it's better against the lancer upgrade, but in general, gaunts are slightly worse. They're harder hitting, but lower attack speed. Which doesn't actually make them worse in all scenarios. Sometimes harder hitting is more important to begin with. Miasma radius decreased from 5 to 4. It's still good. And I think this is a fine change. I don't mind this, even as an Infernals player. No longer stun each other, it's probably good. This, I don't know if it was needed, but I guess it's probably good for denying some sort of Weaver drop lame play type thing. Kind of whatever. This is interesting. So just straight up buff, but technically doesn't matter because very rarely would you ever see a 300 food army that can make use of this extra essentially 10 supply because they're already sitting at 0 out of like 300 when you start, right? They don't make supply buildings, they make power buildings, and power is a separate thing from supply. So it's kind of weird, but okay. Why is this one like grayed out? Are they changing this or removing this? Anyways, health increased on collection raised by 300. I don't think it's a bad change. It's just surprising to see it, I guess. And morph time decreased is probably bad change. I wonder if this means they are not going through with this change. I don't really understand why it's grayed out. It was not grayed out earlier. So yeah, I do think they went back through this and re-changed things from when I first looked at it, which is surprising. I feel like it should have just been addressed in another patch within like a week from now or something if they're going to do stuff like that. Apart from like if it's a bug or something that was introduced. Anyways, I think it's good if they are removing this. I don't know if they are. It's just weird. It's grayed out. Movement speed decreased. Probably good. They do get around too fast. But now the recall upgrade increases move speed. So basically, later on, once you have upgrades for vectors, they're still just as strong. This just slightly lowers their power on tier 1 right at the start of the game type of thing. And that's definitely good to have because vectors were very oppressive, especially combined with health camps. And now health camps are also nerfed in the amount of healing they provide. So very good to limit this sort of play. Vectors made it basically so they're the type of unit that keep you in your base not doing anything, which is very boring playstyle for the defender. Scythes. So fixed an issue where it wasn't dealing the correct amount of damage to air units. So now it's stronger versus air. Oh. Okay, so scythes are nerfed against ground. Maybe it was like this earlier. I want to just say when I read this earlier, I thought they got buffs. But I'm glad to see that they got nerfed first ground. Because I honestly hate scythes. Mostly because they're pretty tanky with their ability active, and I think they also take less damage when they're close to units or something. Yeah. So now they're more of an anti-air unit. So I think scythes and hornets are supposed to be pretty similar. They're just like anti-air air units, essentially. But I don't know. I guess this is probably a fine change. I'm not particularly sure if they needed more damage versus air, but I guess it's fine if they're nerfing their ground damage to give them something else. Saber now is worse versus heavy, but better against non-heavy, as far as I can tell, right? And then they also have better AoE damage with their line being increased from 25% to 50% of the primary damage. So better AoE, better versus non-heavy. Although I want to say sabers are generally used to snipe down heavy units or casters that are casting a spell, right? So I guess against casters, or in both of those situations, these probably don't. I don't know. Probably doesn't matter much. I believe they said they're in the notes that it's supposed to be more beneficial against things like fiends overwhelming a celestial player. but I'm not even sure if sabers should really be shooting fiends in the front line in the first place. Like, it doesn't seem like why you'd get fiends or why you'd get sabers. I mean, otherwise, why do they have this versus heavy if they're meant to shoot? I mean, fiends might be heavy anyways, but that's not the point. The point is, why do they have all this extra high single target damage, and then they're shooting like little fiends in the front? That doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't check out to me. I feel like with their philosophy of upgrades changing a unit, they should have just had upgrades that make Saber turn from like a single target damage dealer to an AoE damage dealer or something. But maybe they don't like changes that completely do that. They probably only do that if they decided to add like change forms, kind of like how hedgehogs turn from a ground attacking unit to an anti-air unit by morphine in that way. Maybe that's something they could think of for Saber. I don't know. Anyways, this change, I guess, is fine, but the sabers are not seen enough that I can really comment a lot on it. I've seen it a few times, and they definitely seemed okay, decently strong, particularly with the upgrades that make them like move faster for a longer duration and so on. They're good if you are defensive as Celestial as well. If you've like taken a middle camp and you have towers there and you have sabers there, it's pretty. It can be difficult to break it. So they're good. I don't know. We can look at their reasoning maybe to see exactly why they mentioned it. Besides the fiends, if there was other purposes. This I'm surprised by. Archangels are already really strong. So not only did they improve them by getting better AI or whatever you want to talk about it with this, but they gave extra health for Avatar by 150. Pretty crazy. Because, like I said, they're already really strong. They're definitely a very strong endgame unit if you can get there and afford them and get enough of them while having good enough economy. Anyways, I think that's about it, apart from looking through their reasoning for things. Yeah, they talk about creeping. They didn't want creeping to be too rewarding compared to just expanding, while still having some reward because they want people moving on the map. I think that's good. Matchups. So their matchups, Vanguard greater than Infernal, greater than Celestial, greater than Vanguard type of thing, is the exact same thing I got when I played. When I was Vanguard, my best matchup was Infernal, just like this, and my worst matchup was Celestial, just like this. When I played Infernal, my best matchup was Celestial, and my worst matchup was Vanguard, just like this. And what do you know? Same thing with Celestial. So even my playstats, which I don't have a ton of games, but I have a decent amount of games with each race, ends up being the same as this. So it's also been my experience. Which is, it's cool that it's at least a rock, paper, scissors thing rather than a thing where one race is completely dominating all the others. But obviously, the strive to make everything even more balanced would be good. Anything else I want to touch on? I don't think so. That's probably it. Overall, I think the changes are not bad, but I'm pretty sure people in general wanted more from the changes, particularly with, I think they actually mention it in here. Okay, we'll look at this. First, Saber. They wanted Saber to be more effective with fiends spawned from gaunts. But like, what? Question mark? Anyways. Yeah. I don't know. We're gonna talk about this. So while I think the patch is overall decent, I did expect more, I would say. Maybe like some mixing up of how the matchups play. Currently, I think the matchups are going to play fairly similar to how they're already playing, is I think the problem. But maybe that's fine. I don't know. Anyways, and this is one of the biggest problems. Vanguard versus Vanguard. Mass Scouts. I think Vanguard versus Vanguard is still going to be Mass Scouts. But they want to see what the creep changes do to the matchup. If that changes it a bit. Personally, I don't think it will. The person who masses scouts generally only gets a couple camps, if any, in the matchup, anyways. Sometimes they're just fight, fight, fight anyway. Like maybe the health camp, and then that's it. So I don't think the creep changes matter enough to change anything there, and it's probably still going to be lots of scouts. But yeah, Celestial versus Celestial. I also think this is a problem with Argent versus Argent. Definitely not a good matchup. But they want to change it. I think they're just unsure of how to change it. And I get that. I don't really have an idea myself of what I exactly would want to do, but yeah, I do think Argent versus Argent is kind of boring. Anyways, so those are the patch notes. I've been enjoying Stormgate. I think with this patch, I will still enjoy Stormgate. But looking forward, hope to see maybe patches that mix it up a bit more. Currently, like I said, I think the games will mostly play out the same. There'll just be slight changes in how things work, even though they're going to play out the same. Yeah. Let me know what you think or what any of your ideas might be. And yeah, we'll look forward to more patches and the eventual full release of the game in the future when it is actually completed. Or, as complete as can be